NFL trade deadline for Eastern. Here to help us understand what could happen, might happen, won't happen, Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL reporter. What are you hearing now about anybody on the move that could change what's going to happen later this postseason?
Yeah, Dan, certainly there's some contending teams that are trying to get an extra piece, particularly on defense. Pass rusher is a position that's buzzing right now. Out of Washington, they're trying to sort out Montez Sweat, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Atlanta's been involved there. So can they get to the finish line on something before 4 p.m.? There's also some interest in Chase Young. So Washington has a lot of decisions to make coming up to the deadline. And then in Chicago, Jalen Johnson, really good cornerback, requested a trade late last night. And there's a lot of interest, but Chicago also wants a lot from what I'm told. Probably would take at least, a good day 2 pick, maybe a second rounder or so, and even change to get that done. But, you got anyone from San Francisco to Philly to Pittsburgh that all have had some interest in corner.
Patrick Surtain with Denver, is he available?
I would be shocked. The way it was told to me is really anybody is available on paper, but the asking price for a guy like Surtain would be so obscene. We're talking probably multiple or even several first-round picks that it's just he's not really available, if that makes sense. It's sort of semantics. So I would be really, really surprised if something got done today. He's not quite untouchable, but not really available either.
So there won't be a McCaffrey-esque trade today, in your opinion?
I'm not sensing that. I do think one, big name pass rusher could get done, like a Daniil Hunter, Minnesota, potentially. Jacksonville has had some interest there. But it's interesting right now because you saw that Leonard Williams trade that got done yesterday between the Giants and the Seahawks. The Seahawks gave up a second and a fifth-round pick for him, which is a pretty good haul. The Giants had to pay his salary. And so I think because of that, teams they paused a little bit yesterday thinking, well, if I make a trade for a good player, I don't want to get embarrassed here and not get enough in a trade when New York just got a lot for Leonard Williams. So those are some of the mechanics in play.
Is Carolina a seller?
Carolina's definitely a seller, yeah. I don't sense they want to move on from Brian Burns, their top pass rusher, even though there's been a lot of interest there. Teams tried last year. They're trying again this year. They'd love to get their hands on him. I don't think Carolina's going to do it. But you have other pieces like cornerback Dante Jackson, safety Jeremy Chin. They got a wide receiver, Terrace Marshall, that wants to be traded. So one of those three names certainly could get dealt. And look, if there's a team that gets desperate enough, like the Vikings or the Browns needing a quarterback, do they go after Andy Dalton? I think the Panthers would move him as well, but I don't sense a lot of traction there.
You know the Panthers well. Are they sold on Bryce Young?
Yeah, I still believe so. I haven't heard otherwise. It was really early on in the season. It was a combination of, they felt like there was something amiss with the offensive line. They were beat up there, and defenses were sort of just daring Bryce to have to go win the game. He had a lot of responsibility on him early on, and he just made some bad reads and some mistakes, combined with, some injuries and lack of weapons offensively and free agents not working out. It was really just sort of an avalanche that Bryce Young was a small part of, but not the whole reason why they were struggling on offense. So, he's played better the last few weeks and showed some signs. And so, look, C.J. Stroud's looking really good, of course, but I still feel like they're sold on what they got, and, they believe that with his mental capacity to just play the position in a really smart way, they think over time he'll get better as opposed to getting worse.
Trying to understand what Arizona is doing. If you have Kyler Murray, do you want Kyler Murray to play, or do you want him not to play, and then you end up maybe getting Drake May or Caleb Williams?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question that depends on the perspective, and they've been really hard to figure out there. They kind of dangle Kyler Murray, or at least last week, they said, we'll see if he plays, and he was a full participant in practice, but then they listed him as doubtful, and this week that he's already pretty much been ruled out, maybe unofficially. So it's like, how long is this going to go, right? Are they just going to ride this out and, lose games closely, but lose them conveniently, knowing that you're going to the finish line and getting maybe Caleb Williams or a top guy? That's a question that I know other teams are curious about and are trying to figure out, and Arizona really hasn't had any clarity there. I think Kyler Murray will play at some point. He's put himself in a position to play. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to just sit him all year, but he's not going to have a lot around him to win games.
Jeremy, thanks for joining us. I know you got a busy day. We appreciate your time.
Hey, anytime, Dan. Appreciate it.
That's Jeremy Fowler, ESPN NFL reporter.